Okay, so we had a brief introduction to Paperspace layouts and viewports, and we've got our drawing set up, and you're ready to kind of go now. Let's open up this 2-house extension drawing, and we'll create a few viewports and set up the drawing. So you see, as I open it up, we've got a nice little sort of layout of house plans and so on. And if you look as well, we've got a couple of layouts created: house extension 1, existing and proposed elevations. So we've got a few different layouts already kind of created for us, and we're going to create viewports to if you like, to highlight certain areas of this whole project. So in model space here, you see I've got all of the details drawn. However, and one little thing, just in my opinion, you see we've got dimensions in here in model space, and we've got text in model space. I think that's off-putting, because really, as I've said before, I'll say it again, the model space should contain only the model, so you shouldn't really see any of this text or dimensions at all. I don't know what they were thinking of kind of putting that in here. It shouldn't be here. You really shouldn't have dimensions or anything like that in model space. The model space should be purely for the model only. So in my opinion, that's a little bit of an error and a bit of a slip in this particular example. So I'd say just be aware of that, and keep in your mind what I've kind of always said is model space is for the model, and then in the paper space we would look at creating dimensions and text and so on. So bit of an error in my opinion. I kind of really think this should be kind of left clutter free. You can see if we were kind of going to modify this now, it would just kind of it would all sort of interfere and kind of get in the way of everything, and wouldn't make for easy modification of this drawing, to be honest, with all that sort of text and stuff in here. So not an ideal start, if you like. Okay, so we're in model space, and confirmed by this little icon here. So we're going to switch to paper space now by clicking on the layout entitled house extension, and again you see the little paper space icon popping up there on screen. Okay, now so we've got our drawing created here, and you can see we've already got one viewport here. Again, if I open up the properties window just to show you, this tells me this is a viewport, and it's coloured lovely light green. Hopefully you can kind of see. We spoke before as well about limits and that on paper space and model space, and I kind of mentioned it before that I wasn't too worried about limits, although we kind of needed to kind of know it for exams, setting up limits in drawing space. I kind of spoke to you that most people don't bother with limits in model space. However, in paper space, limits are really important, because if you look here, we've got this representation of a sheet of paper. You're kind of restricted by the size of the sheet of paper, so limits in paper space are really important. However, it's not even something that you really need to control, because if I right click on this, and if I go to page setup manager, the first thing you do in a layout is come in here and set up your page. So if I come in here, I'm in the house extension, so I'll just modify this one, and the first thing you do is you'd pick up, this is kind of set up for this particular drawing, so I won't go kind of changing this one too much, but this is set up that you'd pick your drawing, and maybe I'll just set it that I'm going to draw to a PDF, so it'll export it to a PDF. And you come in here and then you pick your paper size, and this is actually what sets your drawing limits. So unknown to yourself, when you actually pick a paper size in this page setup, you're actually setting the drawing limits. So you're kind of saying, well, I can only do an A1, and it's a very large A1, but if I kind of click OK to that and click close, I've set up my page now, an A1 size sheet, and my limits are restricted by the printer I'm actually printing to. I'm just printing this to a PDF because I don't have access to the big plotter where I am at the moment. So you can see that that's what actually sets up my drawing limits in this. If I try and type in limits in this and hit return, if you look at the limits, they're kind of strange there. The lower left hand corner is minus figure there. If I type in 0, 0 for my lower left hand corner, and if I decide that my upper right hand corner is 840 by 470. You see that it doesn't matter what I set it to. It says cannot set paper space limits when paper margins or background are displayed. So it actually won't let you set up limits within here because the paper's taking over this. Because we've got our paper space limits, controlled by the actual, if you like, this little image of a sheet. If I right click on options and left click on there, so just kind of come in here to options. So if I wanted to set limits within here, and this is something you don't really kind of need to do, but if you wanted to kind of set the limits in here, you'd have to turn off the paper background and the printable area, so it'll actually allow you to actually set the paper space limits. Okay, so this is what's stopping you from setting paper space limits. But in all honesty, you're going to leave those turned on because you are actually printing out to a sheet of paper. So it's not like you ever, well, it would be a very, very rare occasion that you'd need to actually set limits in paper space that other than the sheet of paper that you're going to print out. And I don't know too many times when I've ever kind of done it, to be honest. Change the size of limits to paper space, other than the size of sheet of paper that you're going to be able to pop into the printer or the plotter. Okay, but just to kind of give you a bit of heads up on the actual limits in paper space, so in this layout in particular. So it's controlled by that. Also, you kind of notice this little dotted line running around. That's the thing called the printable area, and that varies from printer to printer. The printable area is exactly as it says. If I draw outside of that, so if I was to draw a line here, what would actually print out is just within this area, so I'd kind of chop off that little bit. So the printable area is a really important kind of thing as well. It's important that your border stays within that printable area, otherwise you won't see it in the print. Doesn't matter what you do, what you change. That's as far as the printer can print to. So the printer won't be able to print to the edge of the page unless you're lucky enough to have a printer that can print to the edge of the page. The majority of plotters don't print to the edge of the page, so they're physically stopped. They're limited to going to sort of that distance there. So if I draw anything just above that line, it won't appear on the drawing. So that's another little sort of warning as well. So it's important that you kind of keep your drawing within that printable area. If I go to, let's kind of do a plot here. If I go into properties, let's see if I got a printer here. Okay, so I've got a 1220 DeskJet printer here, and you can see it's telling me the page size isn't supported, but I just want to come into a printer here just to show you a little thing. So I click on the properties and we have user-defined paper sizes and calibration. So if I go modify standard paper sizes printable area, and then I can come down here, a bit of a long-winded thing, but it's very important you kind of know this. If I come down here and I'm looking for the A4, there it is, A4. Actually this one does an A3 as well. I might look at the A3. You see here on this particular printer, which is the HP DeskJet 1280, if I come in here I can interrogate this and see exactly what size my printable area is. So for an A3, which is 297 by 420, my actual printable area, so if I was making a border for this, I couldn't make it more than 285.2 by 402.6 because the printer physically can't go any bigger than that. I'm limited to the size the printer will go to. So the printer has sort of limits on it, and the only way you'll find that out is by actually drilling down into this and selecting your plotter, going to properties, and then coming in here down to modify paper standard and have a little look-see and see exactly what you can print out. So if I was going to do a border for an A3 sheet on this HP DeskJet printer, I'd have to keep it within that. So I might kind of make it 280 by 400, something like that, just to keep it well within the limits of my printer. If I look at the A4 size sheet, you can see it's 201.5 by 279.6. So I might kind of make that one 200 by 275. Just go to the nearest kind of round it up to the nearest 5. So I might kind of make that border that size, but it's important that you kind of know that. So if you've got a printer, you need to go in and have a little look and see exactly what your limits are on your printer. So by doing that, you can kind of pop in there and you know exactly what size you make your template and your title blocks for your border. I'll just cancel that and go to that now because I don't want to modify this sheet. So that's the printable area, and it's important that you kind of have a little look at that and see exactly what your printer can print before you go printing any title blocks and that, because you go to the bother of creating all these lovely title blocks and then you just see that your printer can't fit it in. You have to go and fix it all up again. So that's information that you need to know, and you can write it down for sort of future use. Okay, so